Listen to what Speaker Mike Johnson had to say about wrapping up the war in Iran.
I know that this administration is working around the clock to resolve that in a way so that we don't suffer any more troop losses. This is a great tragedy. It shouldn't happen. But it is a very important objective that I believe we've achieved to ensure that the largest sponsor of state of terrorism does not have a nuclear weapon. That would be a disaster for everybody, and everybody around the world understands that. Now we got to wrap it up.
Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich joins me now. Newt, welcome back to the show. Do you think that Trump is losing Congress on the war?
No, I checked in with Mike this morning, and look, what he said is what Trump wants. Trump would like to wrap it up as fast as he can. It's the Iranians who are the problem, not the Trump administration. And I think in that sense, Speaker Johnson was representing, frankly, the feeling of most Americans. Notice he balanced it. He said, we can't let them have nuclear weapons, but we'd sure like to get this done. That doesn't mean getting it done by letting them have nuclear weapons. So there is no distance between Speaker Johnson and President Trump on this issue. Again, I think most Americans, if they think about it, they have this formula that's a problem. We cannot allow a religious dictatorship to have nuclear weapons that could take out Chicago or Washington or New York. At the same time, we are discovering, and you just had Secretary Rubio, who's doing a brilliant job, communicate, the Iranians don't really want to negotiate. The Iranians think that they can win by outlasting us, and they think that they can win by absorbing the punishment. And we're going to have to, frankly, develop a much tougher strategy, not use U.S. ground troops, but there are lots of ways that we can cause the Iranian regime to begin to disintegrate.
Well, the president has just threatened that if another ship is attacked, we will go after a power plant, which would do serious damage to the Iranians. But that's a powerful threat of escalation right there. But I want to turn to the Arizona primary results, where a moderate Democrat, Greg Stanton, defeated socialist Kai Newkirk. What does that tell you, Newt? Is it possible that the tide is just beginning to turn against the socialists as we learn more about them? What do you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, in most of the victories by the hardline socialists, they've been in big cities with extremely small turnout. I mean, people have been winning nominations with 7% of the vote because people just won't show up. They're disgusted with government. Big city government is so bad in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. The people just won't go to the polls. So a militant group of underemployed graduate students, and that's what they are. As you know from the most recent study, it's amazing that these so-called socialists are almost all wealthy. They almost all have graduate degrees, and they feel bad because they can't get a decent job that fits their ego. And so they've decided that taking government and forcing the rest of us to do what they want is their new hobby. There's no place I know of when you get outside the big cities where they're doing all that well, because most Americans understand that big government socialism combined with weird values is a losing formula. It just doesn't work.
Got it. One more for you. Lindsey Graham's sister, Darline Graham, entered the South Carolina Senate race with little political experience. But CNN's pollster Harry Enton says the Trump endorsement just changed the dynamics. Watch this.
There's a reason why this 14% became 80%, and that is because when it comes to Senate primaries, Donald Trump's record is magnificent. Trump endorsee has won Senate primaries of non-elected incumbents. So we're not just looking at elected incumbents, right? We're looking at open seats or appointed incumbents who have never actually won the Senate seat. Look at this. Since 2022, it's about 95% of the time. This year, in fewer races, it's 100%. There has never been somebody I have seen as powerful in terms of their ability to move the electorate in primaries than the current president.
Clearly, Newt, a Trump endorsement makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Well, of course. I mean, look, Trump is the most powerful president inside his own party in American modern history. You'd probably have to go back to Lincoln or Jefferson to have his comparable strength. That's inside his party. We're going to find out in November if we can extend that and win a remarkable historic election this fall. I would say if Trey Gowdy decided to run, that he has done so well on Fox. He comes across as, so knowledgeable, so balanced, with so much common sense. The Trey would be very formidable. But I know that Tim Scott, the the Republican senator from South Carolina, would like him to run. But the fact is, President Trump, if he wants to come down and campaign and hold 1 or 2 rallies in South Carolina, could probably nominate Lindsey Graham's sister.
Got it. Sorry to say we've got to leave it right there, Newt Gingrich, but thanks as always for being with us. There will be more Varney after this.